So, I wanted to talk about, let's make sure this still records when I turn off the screen. It'd be kind of dumb if it didn't. I want to talk about platformers because I've been playing Donkey Kong Country Returns lately, and not too long ago I finished New Super Mario Bros. U. So, I wanted to talk about kind of my thoughts on what works in platformers, what doesn't, like modern ones, but some older ones as well, and particularly those two series. So, Donkey Kong Country Returns to me is a great example of how to do a modern platform. It's like 10 years old now, I think. So it's not super modern. I feel like moderns to me is like the last 10 years and retro's like 20 years. Um, but the new Donkey Kong Country games and Rayman Legends are the two like 2D platformers that stand out to me as being great, um, modern 2D platformers, and they're good examples of how to do that. Um, I like the collectibles. I like the art. I like the music. They get intense. They're kind of theatrical in a way that Super Mario isn't, um, which I really enjoy. Minecart levels, for example, in Donkey Kong Country. Um, I like them because you can't control your speed, and usually with levels like that in platformers, you tend to control your speed a lot, which makes it kind of trickier. And I understand why they do that, but I really like in Donkey Kong Country how you just press the button and you just hold. Um, and it's this simplicity, like very very simple, but it's still tricky because of the timing of things. Um, the barrel blasting levels are interesting. They're a little different because you have to keep clicking it and like keep holding it. Um, and the controls are kind of odd, like not bad, but they're intentionally kind of wonky in a smooth but like weird way, and it's kind of interesting. I remember playing Rayman Legends really. I remember it really reminding me of Donkey Kong Country. Or no, I think playing Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze years ago. I think that reminded me of Rayman Legends, which is good. I feel like Rayman, the format of those games is kind of similar. Super Mario is different. It's weirdly slower. Uh, New Super Mario Bros., particularly U. I remember liking the original DS version, but that was a long time ago, like when I was a kid, so I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much if I played it now. But New Super Mario Bros. U to me is an example of how not to do a modern platformer. I found the game felt really shallow and superficial. The levels felt empty. Most of them. There's some cool ones like the painting, but overall, the levels didn't feel like they had anything really in them. Um, there's just nothing memorable or interesting about them. There's no secrets. Super Mario World was very different in that regard because it was creative. There was a lot of interesting levels um, that kind of stand out. You know, there's some neat puzzles. Ghost houses could be cool. But New Super Mario Bros. U didn't have anything that was memorable to me. No boss fights, no levels. Maybe like the painting level, like that kind of area, but that's about it. Um, and especially for a Super Mario game, it's kind of disappointing because usually each game adds something new to the series and kind of revitalizes it in a way. And there's usually a new power up, right? But in New Super Mario Bros. U, you get like the acorn, which is like okay, but it doesn't. The little new that it does do is just not interesting to me. And I think one of the core parts of a platformer is controls. I think controls need to feel good. They need to be very responsive, very smooth, very reliable. An emphasis on the responsive. You know what I mean? And most modern platformers that I've played nail that. Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, um, obviously the new Donkey Kong Countries and Rayman Legends. Super Meat Boy is one of the first things I think of when I think of a game with really responsive controls. But New Super Mario Bros. Really doesn't, and it's so odd because Super Mario was the platformer, the classic platformer that started the genre. It's a legend in gaming and certainly in platforming. So it's odd that New Super Mario Bros. Doesn't feel like it knows, at least the Wii U version, because that's what I'm talking about, because that's what I've played recently. It's odd that it feels like it doesn't know how to be a platformer. Um, and plenty of people enjoyed it, so that it's not that it's bad, but the way I view what a platformer should be, New Super Mario Bros. Just completely misses the mark because control wise, it's fucking it's slippery, you know. I don't feel like I can rely on the controls. They're responsive in a sense, but I just in a platformer when you jump and you let go of the thumbstick and Mario like moves a little more, like that slidiness, I find that's a really bad thing to have in a platformer. Hollow Knight is probably one of my favorite platformers. And funnily enough, it's not a straight one. It's a Metroidvania, which means it has platforming elements, but there's a lot else. But I absolutely love the way Ghost controls. In every sense of the word, it is perfectly responsive. It is pinpoint. It is 100% reliable, and it's such a polished game that no death can be blamed on the game. Maybe poor design, although personally I'm a huge fan of Hollow Knight, so I wouldn't say that any death you had could be blamed on that. But on the technical side, you're 100% fine. You can rely on the game, which is an important thing in any game. But I find especially in platformers where you're stripping down the gameplay, and you're really having an emphasis on just jumping and moving around. It's just really important to nail those controls and the way they feel. So New Super Mario Bros. doesn't do that. It doesn't feel good. And oddly, I don't find that any 2D Mario game really feels good. I think World, as far as the 2D games, I think World comes the closest. I think that's by far, to me, the best. There's a couple other annoying things that I have about my voice keeps cracking about New Super Mario Bros. Another one is timers. Now, I can forgive something like World for having timers because it's released in 1990 and it's incredible how well it holds up at all. But even in the 90s, even with Donkey Kong Country and all those games and Kirby, most other platformers didn't have timers. It felt like gaming grew out of them in the 90s, after a few years. So it baffles me that they brought that back for New Super Mario Bros., especially for 3D World, because that's an entirely different thing. And that was released in 2013. And I can't understand why you would put a timer in to complete a level. Because this isn't specific parts. It's not like break all the boxes in 60 seconds. It's getting through the level. And I feel like all that says is don't slow down and appreciate the level. Don't slow down and appreciate the design and the art and take your time to look at it. It's a real pet peeve of mine in gaming when they do that. Like in other games where you have not even necessarily a timer, but like when a character starts fucking like pushing you along, being like, hurry up. I remember Halo Reach was a game I played not too long ago for like the fifth time. But Long Night of Solace was a really interesting level. It was a unique level in Halo. It was gorgeous. It looked, it felt so cool, and it was so new. And it was the last game in the series, and levels like that made Halo Reach a good send-off for the series. So after you finish shooting all the ships, you have to go land somewhere, and I want to fly around and explore because it's such a cool area. But I have like this fucking asshole talking to me on the fucking radio, telling me like, hurry up every 15 seconds. And it baffles me, especially in cases like that, because they have to write that down and have the voice actor say it and put it in the game. And I can't understand why anyone would do that. Like, when you put something in a game, you have to. I understand there's so many elements to it, but you have to consider, does this benefit the game? And something like that can only take away, because Halo is such an interesting game atmospherically, artistically, musically, and discouraging players from slowing down to appreciate that doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure that's not how they viewed it, but that's the only thing that I feel when shit like that comes up. And what's worse than that, although slightly less baffling, I guess, is when you put timers on every level in a game. Like, that's just how it's designed. It feels like this weird fucking leftover from retro times. We're talking games that were released into 2013. So it just doesn't make sense to have that, and that's really, really not good. Another thing that is much smaller, but I still didn't like and I want to touch on, is worlds. Now, personally, I prefer more cohesive worlds, but I can get behind the idea of each world being a drastically different theme, because it does create a certain degree of creative freedom, like do whatever the fuck you want as long as it's in like a fucking cloud theme and you have all these different worlds. It kind of bugs me that there isn't a lot of variety. Like, the first one is always green and grass, which is fine, but then the second one's always like desert. There's got to be an ice world. There's got to be a cloud world. I played New Super Mario Bros. Original. I played the U version. I played 3. I played 3D World, and it's like the same thing every time. But moving past that, the issue I have is when levels within that world aren't consistent with its theme. Now, the pull of each world is that it has a theme. You get to a new world and you have a new theme. So why would you have levels? Why would you have like? Why would I go to like a desert world and then have like underwater levels and shit? Like, let's say there's 8 levels and like 2 of them are underwater, one of them's underground. Maybe there's like a green level that's completely outside of theme. Like, we already had like the green grassy world, so why is there like a grassy level in the fucking desert world? It's just that inconsistency really bugs me personally. And I remember that being a thing in New Super Mario Bros., although I couldn't refer to anything specific. It might have been in 3D World, but I might just be thinking of 3. I played a bit of 3, I never beat that. And this is something that World does well, because Super Mario World is one cohesive world. You're just exploring this one island. And you just go to sections. You have the cave, you have the bridge, you have the fucking chocolate area, you have the Forest of Illusions. So it makes it more interesting and satisfying to traverse and to progress, because you're getting to kind of an endpoint and not just going through these simplified sections. And especially when you have levels that aren't consistent with the theme, it's like, what's the point? I understand the ghost houses, you have the castles. But yeah, I just don't like that. And it feels like on all those fronts, New Super Mario Bros. U does all of those things, but it doesn't make up for them by having interesting creative levels. And that's one of the things that makes Super Mario interesting, in World and 3D World particularly. To me, I think Galaxy to an extent as well. Obviously Odyssey, because that's my favorite. Mario game. But they always have this degree of creativity. You always come across these levels and these areas that are like, hey, this is interesting, this is cool, this is neat. So you usually have that, and World absolutely had that with some kind of puzzle levels, and 3D World had some cool stuff. Most of them do, but New Super Mario Bros. U just feels so devoid of that. It just feels like it's like, okay, we're gonna make a new Super Mario Bros. Game, but we're not gonna do anything with that. It's just gonna be a new Super Mario Bros. Game. It doesn't have any of the, it doesn't have anything to back anything up. It just feels so shallow, so surface level with nothing below that. And I remember the original game wasn't like that. It felt like it had a lot more to it. Um, it's just odd, you know? It's odd that it's that much worse. Um, Donkey Kong Country handles worlds in kind of a neat way. They are separate worlds, but it's a little more cohesive in the sense that it's not ice and fire and shit like that. It's like jungle and then cave. Donkey Kong Country 2 was interesting for that. Probably the first game as well, but I think 2 had more distinct worlds. And I only played to the third one. Like a couple hours is all I played of that game. But I thought it was really cool that the first world was like a wrecked ship. That's something new, for once. It's something new in fucking modern platformers. I don't see shit like that. And then the second one is like a lava kind of cave. And I'm used to seeing that kind of thing as like the final level, or the final world in Mario games. And the third one is like a swamp. So they're separate, but it makes sense that all these things are on one island. And those original Donkey Kong Country games are interesting because they had a lot of graphical detail and a lot of atmosphere, which was impressive. Now, Super Mario and Donkey Kong Country are both different things, and I won't say one should try to be the other, because Super Mario, even the 2D ones at their best, are really good. But I don't find that one of the core parts of platformers, feeling good to control, is very present in Super Mario, even in World. And again, timers, controls, that's forgivable in a game that was released in 1990. This is a year after the 80s. This was like early SNES era. This was not long after the NES. So it's incredibly, it's extraordinarily impressive how well that game holds up. That and Super Metroid are my go-to games to point out, like, this is an old game that holds up, and that means something coming from me because I've grew up on like Xbox 360 kind of era of gaming, right? So I'm used to that modern convenience, and it's hard for me to play a lot of older games. And World is like the only game that fucking old that I can play without any save states or anything. Although it was very challenging, but it was worth it in the end. What else do I want to touch on? I've talked about Super Mario quite a bit now. Quite a bit. I've got most of the things I think I wanted to say, come to think of it. I've really been enjoying Returns. I haven't beaten it yet. I'm on like World 6. I think I just got to... I don't know what it's called, but it's the one after the forest. I beat Tropical Freeze a few years ago, and it's different from Mario. It doesn't have a timer, thank God. It doesn't have the atmosphere of the originals, but it makes up for that by its theatricality. It's theatrical. It's exciting, and it gets intense. Like proper intense. Like, holy shit, I gotta fucking go. The last level that I played was where you're kind of going through, and I think you like break something, and just this massive, like hundreds and hundreds, like fucking swarm of spiders starts coming out at you from like the back of the screen, just out of nowhere, right? And you have to outrun them, and you have to go like really fast, and the music picks up, and it's so good. The music in those games is so good, which is especially impressive in Returns because it's not done by David Wise, who did all of the other Donkey Kong Country games. And the soundtrack to the second game is one of my favorite game soundtracks ever, despite how little I've actually played of the game itself. You got the barrel levels, with the timing and shit. I always like timing kind of based things in games like that, so that's why I like the minecart stuff so much. I like the barrel stuff. I love the angles, the way it zooms in and out, and you go shooting through like some kind of tunnel in a barrel. Like it's a visually spectacular. And to me, it's just so much more exciting than Mario tends to be. And that's okay, that Mario's different. It's just unfortunate that Mario, because the timer thing, right? Because Mario feels to me like a slower game that you slow down and you look at things a little more, because the Super Mario games like 3D World and World, had puzzles. World had puzzles. That was something that's a little unusual. I think 3 did as well, but I'm more familiar with World. It had puzzles, it had a shit ton of secrets, and the movement just isn't quite as like fluid and fast as Donkey Kong Country. So it really feels to me more like a game where you're supposed to slow down. So the fact that the timers are there and that they continue to be included in the series and up until not too long ago is unfortunate. I think Bowser's Fury is something different though, because that's a free roam thing. I was talking about timing earlier. I remember that was kind of something I wanted to touch on, just a little bit, not too related to platformers, but I really enjoy when timing is implemented in games in a certain sense. Um, I guess I don't know, just timing based like mechanics. Quick time events are one of those. Most people don't like them. I've always liked them. Okay, they can be utilized very well. I remember this one scene in Resident Evil 4. There was this knife fight you get into with a guy, and at certain points, like he'll lunge at you, and then you have to react really quickly, um, by pressing X at the right time. But I think that really tense anticipation of waiting for him to do something, and attacking at just the right time, really added a lot of tension to that scene that wouldn't have been there if it was done in a different way. Or maybe it could have, but I think that was a good way to do it personally, and that was like a quick time event. I think that's a good example of how to implement it, because it had me on the fucking edge of my seat, being like, like scared and like fucking like really engaged, like because it was just so tense. And I thought that was cool. That was an interesting game. It was not just easy to play, but I think if they've been doing remakes of Resident Evil, and if they did 4, I think I would get it. If they did a remake of 4 that made it a little easier to play. Yeah, I guess my biggest concern is atmosphere, though. 4 and I played the HD version, but 4 had an atmosphere right from the first minute. You step out of the car, you're in this forest. You can really feel it. To me, I really enjoy the way the game feels. When you go up to the village, and everyone's kind of working, and they don't see you at first until you get close, and then they start attacking you. But that was cool. It was atmospherically really, really good. Really good. But that's the only one in the series that I've played. None of the others interested me. Yeah, anyway. I thought I had something I wanted to say about 3D platformers. About the 3D Mario games. I really like Sunshine. Odyssey is my favorite Mario game. Odyssey was fantastic. Odyssey was To me, everything that a 3D platformer should be and more. It was everything I wanted. It was just fun. I think the biggest change that I liked about Odyssey was that the stars weren't split up into episodes. That was the thing throughout the 3D series for a while, and I get it. I wish there was a change, but well, Odyssey was the change. It just took a long time. But I really prefer the setup, sort of like how Banjo Kazooie had it a little more, where you go to one map and then it's like a sandbox, and you go around and you talk to people, you solve the puzzles in the map, and you explore, and all the stars are just there for you to find and collect. And that was just kind of cool. It's nostalgic for me a little bit. I mean, Odyssey wasn't, but it just kind of reminded me of something I really enjoyed when I was a kid. And I don't know why, because I don't know what I'm thinking of. Maybe it was something in Roblox. Maybe it was like, it was probably badge hunts in Roblox, like find the domos. That's probably what it reminds me of. I was really into that when I was like 11. But yeah, going to this one map and wandering around and figuring shit out, you know, that's satisfying. Um, that is what I want out of platformers like that. And Odyssey really captured that. Really, really fun game. Really good game. Sunshine was great too. Not as interesting area-wise, but I appreciate that it wasn't like just worlds. It was interesting that it was just an island and it was regions. There were some cool ones. I really liked the beach. The hotel was neat. I always enjoy any kind of ghost house thing. Ghost houses are always cool to me. Um, Galaxy really felt like the first game in a series in the sense that it was conceptually cool. It looked great. Um, Really pretty game. A really good concept. But it really didn't nail it. It had a lot of... I feel like it had too many levels where you weren't just going to like a map and exploring and shit. You know, you had stuff like the beach bowl and the bee um, galaxy, and that's the kind of thing that I like. Where you do just go to a map and explore, and I appreciate the variety, but I feel like there were too many levels like with like the slingshotting and stuff. You know, and that's just I don't know. That's not interesting to me. There was a lot of stuff like that. Um, that wasn't like exploration, and that's what I value in a 3D Mario or in any kind of 3D uh, platformer or collectathon is the adventure or the exploration, and I feel like Galaxy was lacking in those things. Um, Odyssey perfectly captured them, but yeah, Galaxy was lacking. But I want to try Galaxy 2 because I know that the galaxies in that are bigger. Um, it has Yoshi in it, which is interesting. I guess that's all I wanted to say on platformers. Yeah, I've played quite a few. I mentioned a bunch, just offhand. But I've just been thinking about Super Mario and Donkey Kong Country recently because I've been playing them. I played Odyssey earlier this year, playing Donkey Kong Country Returns now. I recently beat, like not that, like a month or two ago, I beat New Super Mario Bros. U. Um, yeah, it's good to get thoughts out like that sometimes. I have a lot of them, and I just kind of say them to myself. But it's interesting to actually put them down and share them. Because I've never really done that before, but I guess the channel can really be an outlet for thoughts, like opening CDs, just sharing like my love of music, or sharing my love of gaming through thoughts like these, and or recordings. You know, it's like sharing an experience and a part of me, and I feel like things tend to have a lot more or not value, but meaning when you share them. You know, when you create something, it's great to create for yourself, and I feel like that's what you have to do to stay passionate and to love what you do. But you know, you create for yourself in a way, but you put it out there. You put it out there.